Hey, I am Jane Nicole, romance author of over 50 books, and I am here to talk to you about my road to traditional publishing. If you've watched a few of the other videos, you may know I spent a few weeks working on the manuscript. I am now working on the editing. So the manuscript is done and it's over 74,000 words. It's a romance, of course. It's a love after loss romance, and I'm extremely excited about the story that came out. I spent a lot of time plotting the story, thinking about the story, and all the things that are involved before writing the story. And what came out is it's something that I would say I enjoy. So hopefully other people will enjoy it too. But now is the task of editing it and collecting all the critique feedback so that I can work that into the story. So my first pass in any story is always just an initial read through, which is basically I wrote the end, and now I'm going back through and rereading through each of the chapters. So I will reread through everything, and as I'm going, I may be making small edits to things to make sure that the sentences make sense, or some areas may make larger edits just to make sure that the story flows with everything that ended up at the end. So now that I know the complete story, um, some things at the beginning may need to be adjusted so that they fit the progression of the story. So that's what I'm working on now. Typically, when I write and I do self publishing, I will complete the story, do a read through, send it to my editor, and then once the editor sends it back, I go back through the story again before I send it out to be published. Now, because I am hoping to get an agent that can take this to a publishing house, the path is a little bit different. So I've completed the book, and now I am doing my read through like I typically would. In the process, I'm also having some peers review the work for me so that they can give me the feedback that they believe will make the story stronger. And once I have all that feedback, I will go through the story again and apply that feedback, likely do another read through, make some more edits, and continue that process until I feel the story is really tight and exhibits everything that I want the reader to experience as they read the story. So this process, unlike many of my other books, will likely take a little bit longer. The idea is to pitch this story at a writers' conference, the Chesapeake Writers Conference, that will be happening in DC, in Virginia, in Northern Virginia in March. So the idea is to at least pitch the idea to the agents and have something that's in decent shape to show to them and share with them. Ideally, it would be in pristine shape, but I will not make any promises that will be there, but I'm really hoping to get there. And then ideally, someone will want to read further and I will be able to send it back to them. If not, I will continuously work with the story until we get to the point where someone is interested in it. So I am giving myself this year to continuously work through this story, unlike other indie published work where I work through the story and get to the point where I believe it's a decent story and then I publish it. This one, I am working with the intent to have an agent agree that it's a decent story, so I will continue working it. If all else fails, the goal is in December I will release this to my readers. I'll self-publish it myself in hopes that all my readers will love and enjoy the story that I've created, all the work that I put into it, and I'm really looking forward to it. So some of the tools I use while I'm doing my editing, so ideally, I'm just doing one pass of my read through, and I use comments in Microsoft Word to make little notes to myself. With my critique partners, we are using Google Drive and sharing through comments there. Any feedback that we have for each other, we each have our own independent files that we're working from, and we upload a couple of chapters each week so that we don't overwhelm each other. We work through those. I'm also using Critique Circle, which is another website that you can have feedback from peers. It's a really good system where you have to critique work to be able to have work critiqued. I'm using that site, which also you upload chapters there, and the feedback comes in form of comments, kind of in line or summarized at the beginning and the end. It's a really good system there. The challenge, I think, will be bringing all those critiques together and making sure that I don't get lost in the weeds of all the comments and all the feedback, because all of these are peers. Obviously, they are individual opinions. So I have to take that into consideration with the grand scheme of the story to make sure that any feedback that I apply does not change the direction of the story in a way that it doesn't deliver on the story that I intended to write. Um, so similar to like feedback from readers, which I have admittedly stopped reading now because I believe that, I love to hear, as anyone, great feedback. I love to hear positive feedback. I love when a reader loves the story. But when they don't, I feel like I get really overwhelmed by that. I feel like lately and it may be the season of my life, who knows? I feel a little overwhelmed by any negative feedback. And obviously, I've always told myself and other authors that not everyone will love everything you put out. Think of your favorite artist, music artist, and imagine an album. How many songs on your favorite artist's album can you listen to completely in its entirety without skipping it? With a few rare exceptions, it's probably not every song on every album you love. There's always going to be something you don't connect with. So I try to remember that as I put out work, that even if you've loved everything I write, there may be a story you just don't connect with. And that's okay too, because you're not going to love everything I do. I may change a direction because that's what I feel like I move towards, and you may not like that new direction. Or I may come up with a story idea that's not really your cup of tea, not something that you want to read. And that's okay too. Or maybe my writing style for that book is just something that you're not interested in. Whatever the case may be, there's always going to be someone who may absolutely love your work and someone who may absolutely hate it. And somewhere in the middle is hopefully the average of everything. And ideally, hopefully, not everyone hates it. And, in the perfect world, even if everyone loved it, that might be a little questionable. But for my own sake, I don't get lost in the weeds of reviews. Similarly, for negative feedback that may come back from my critique partners, which isn't as frequent because typically in our peer group, we're trying to be encouraging and critique and not, tear things apart. We're trying to say, okay, this is how you can improve. It may be decent right now, but let's make it better. It's not saying, oh, this is terrible, unless it actually is, and then let's see how we can make this way better. So it is a different stance, but in the same case, it's still very individualized. So someone may read something and be like, this isn't really, some hitting me where I need to hit, but it may hit someone else. So it's taking that feedback and making sure I apply it correctly so that I don't change kind of the essence of the story. And I think I talked about essence of the story in last YouTube video, if you go back and watch that one. Ideally, we want a message to be delivered when we're writing a story. And if we change it too much, we may not get that message. We may not get that vibe. We may not get that feeling. And this story that I'm writing, it's kind of personal to me. So I am taking it a direction that may not be everyone's cup of tea. Like I said, it is a love after loss story. And so it may be challenging for some to read because it is very deep in the emotions. It's very deep in the sadness. And the reason I went that direction and may have to back away from it a little bit so that readers aren't bogged down is that when you are suffering from a loss and you're deep in grief, a lot of times others' opinions are, if they haven't experienced grief like you have, may be that, oh, the day has changed, that loss is over, we can move on. And a lot of times that person who's grieving hasn't moved on yet. Some people may grieve for a very long time, some people may grieve for a short amount of time. Whatever the case may be, that is very individualized, similar to reviews. So this story that I am writing may or may not hit for everybody because they may not understand, but this is typically this is for those people who have experienced loss. And when I say loss and grief, I'm not necessarily meaning a loss of a person. For many, that will be the case. For some, a loss could be a relationship or a friendship of a person who's still alive and well, but that relationship has ended. Many times we see this in divorce. It has a very similar grieving process as a death. You grieve the loss of that person because they're no longer in your life. They're no longer in your day to day. So I say all of that to say that this editing process is going to be different than I've done for any of my other books. And it's also going to be different because the type of story that I'm telling is different. And I think that I will be challenged to make sure I maintain the essence of the story, but also allow the reader to experience the essence of that story without feeling the dread and gloom and doom as they would if they were grieving. Although I want them to truly understand what it feels like for someone who may have gone through this, or I want them to feel the support if they do feel this. If they're feeling that they are in those deep emotions, they can feel there's some relatability there. So, all that said, this is what I'm doing. I'm now in the editing phase of my traditional quest to becoming traditionally published, and I hope that you'll continue following along. And my other side of things, on my indie side, I actually have a book releasing very soon, so it will be interesting to keep up with everything going on the traditional side while I am continuously writing on the indie side, because that won't stop. I still would like to continue publishing on the indie side, so I'll continue to put out books so that my readers can continue to love them and keep and stay entertained while I continuously work on this. Like I said, the goal is to be in a somewhat decent shape by March. And then once I get past that, we'll see what happens. But hopefully I will be coming back to all of you with great news that yes, someone wants to read my book. And I think that in and of itself will be a win for me. But I am going to be cautiously optimistic and understand that that may not be the case, and we'll keep working. And I will continue to tell you about all the things and stages of this process as I continue on. And I hope that you'll continue to come back and watch and learn what's going on. Please feel free to drop any comments in the box, and I will respond accordingly. If you have any questions about what I'm doing, what I'm using, how I'm doing it, any of the critique resources that I've mentioned, if you have questions about those, drop questions in the box, in the comments, and I will provide feedback. I'll also drop the link for critique circle in the comments or in the description of this video so that you have information about that if you'd like to use that and pursue your critique feedback journey. Excuse me. I do think it's an important step, something that will definitely improve your writing. If you have feedback from others outside of readers, feedback from your peers, I think is amazing. Feedback even from readers who you trust and who are avid readers is also amazing too. So that's something to look out for as well. Again, Jane Nicole, romance author on the journey to traditional publishing. I thank you so much for watching this video. Take care. Bye.